Tonight on CFTK-TV News, the Terrace All Candidates Forum occurred yesterday with a surprise guest. Kitimat's mayor spoke a bit on a totem pole that will be raised soon near the Haisla Bridge, and we have an update on how BC's polls look in the first week of the election campaign.
Northwest BC's only television news team. We are CFTK-TV News.
Good evening, I'm Cale Maslin, and here's what's making the news in the Northwest and beyond for today. After facing off a couple of days earlier at an all-candidates forum in Kitimat, the nominees for the Skeena MLA position, Claire Rattay of the BC Conservatives and Sarah Zimmerman of the BC NDP, did it again at another forum, this time in Terrace, but with a bit of a plot twist this go-around. Erwin Jeffrey, who was a last-minute addition to the race for the Skeena riding, showed up to the forum to represent the Christian Heritage Party, despite the fact that he was not advertised for the event. Nonetheless, Jeffrey joined the debate that saw multiple topics covered, such as the still ongoing and serious province-wide drug crisis, the also prevalent housing crisis, forestry, and economic development. But the main topic of the debate ended up being the many issues with local health care.
I actually think that the BC NDP is already investing incredible amounts of effort, time, and money into trying to improve our healthcare system. Again, this is something that is affecting us across the country. It's affecting all of North America. We're not only competing for the recruitment and retention of doctors and nurses here in Terrace, but this is happening across the country. I look at what Northern Health has been doing over the last little while, offering financial incentives for physicians of $30,000, $10,000 for support workers, incentives for nurses. The only way that we can stop ER closures is through recruiting people and making sure that we have qualified physicians in this region to be able to service the hospitals and be able to keep those ERs open.
One of the big things is going to be around giving guaranteed wait times, ensuring that if somebody has cancer and they are in need of surgery or diagnostic services, that we have guaranteed wait times in this province. And if we aren't able to meet those within our current system, that the government will purchase that capacity in other provinces or other countries if necessary to ensure that people aren't dying on those wait lists anymore. We need to focus on attracting and incentivizing healthcare professionals to rural and remote communities like ours in general throughout this province, but specifically up here. We have an aging population that needs more care. It's just unacceptable, the state of healthcare currently in this province.
Is there going to be a lockdown treatment center in our brand new hospital, or is it going to be a vending machine like Bonnie Henry has proposed for your corner pharmacy? The addicts need intervention. Tough love, you might say. But why penalize Canadians who are sick and needing treatment through no fault of their own? There's a moral element here. There needs to be a critical reassessment of values and goals in healthcare. In addition, the CHP, or the Christian Heritage Party, advocates revoking Bill 36. Doctors and nurses who were first lauded as frontline heroes, but subsequently fired for not submitting to an experimental gene therapy, need to be hired and compensated. This would immediately and substantially improve the delivery of health care in the province.
Yesterday morning at around 6 a.m., the Prince Rupert RCMP got word about a male resident getting stabbed in his residence located on the 600 block of 7th Avenue West in Prince Rupert. The man was said to be 56 years old, and despite attempts from both the RCMP and EHS to save his life, the man later succumbed to his injuries at a hospital. As of right now, the Prince Rupert Police are getting help from the Terrace General Investigation Section, North District Major Crimes Unit, and Forensic Identification Section to find out who committed this homicide. The police aren't releasing any other details right now, but they did say that anyone with potentially useful information should call the Prince Rupert RCMP at 250-624-2136 or BC Crime Stoppers at 1-800-222-8477. Monday, September 30th marks the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, and there will be many events going on to honor the day around the Northwest. One significant event will be the raising of a new totem pole carved by Nathan Wilson. The pole will overlook the Haisla Bridge, and Mayor of Kitimat, Phil Germuth, shared with CFTK News a bit about how the pole came to be and the state of local reconciliation.
And so really LNG Canada started the process. Then we had SETI get us into the next stage, and now it's up to us to keep it going. And there's no doubt, I have no doubt, council and our staff and both staff and councils want to see this going. We realize the benefits that come to both communities by working together, and it only makes sense. So fast forwarding now to what's going to happen on the 30th, we now have a pole that will be raised at the site of the new Heisler Bridge. And of course, on the Heisler Bridge, on the sidewalk going across, there's the original 6 clans of the Heisler Nation that are there and basically that are backlit, and it really looks beautiful if you get to see it at night. So it's been a great process moving forward. Of course, it was a Heisler joint venture that built the bridge, and so great to see. The whole thing has worked out so well.
We are nearing the end of week 1 of the BC election campaign, and polls have the NDP and the BC Conservatives neck and neck for the lead, with some concern about John Rustad's views and others about the direction the province has been heading. CTV's Rob Buffum has more on those polls.
All right, let's roll in.
As the election campaign rolls into the end of its first week, the latest opinion polls show a dead heat between the BC NDP and BC Conservatives.
Close race, a lot of really close ridings that are going to decide this thing.
A Leger poll released Wednesday shows the BC Conservatives with a 2-point lead over the NDP, and an Angus Reid survey released the same day has them in a statistical tie, with nearly a fifth of voters still undecided, and the Greens well down at 7%. Both polls show David Eby with an edge on leader favorability over Rustad and the Greens first and now. The Angus Reid poll indicates a significant number expressed concerns about Rustad's views on issues like climate change, something he acknowledges is real but doesn't call a crisis. More than half, 51% of those surveyed by the Angus Reid Institute, said they considered John Rustad's views too extreme. On the other hand, 34% of those surveyed did not agree with that statement. That data was collected through Monday morning before the NDP dropped an attack campaign, including videos showing Rustad expressing skepticism about the province's handling of COVID and regrets about the vaccine, something he later explained as a result of a bad reaction to it.
I think that the BC NDP is trying to take this, the extreme narrative, the conspiracy narrative, and try to cast it at him and the party as a whole.
We're all in this together. And when you've got an outlier who can't comply, what's really going on in his head?
But it's not clear-cut. The Leger poll showed that less than 40% of BC residents think things are going in the right direction, while more than half believe they aren't.
I don't think the way things currently are going are really going the way that everyone wants them to go, so I would encourage a change to happen.
With such a close campaign, so much at stake, and such different views of BC, expect a wild ride the next 3 weeks.
Coming up next, a police shooting has left many people wondering what happened to cause it. Welcome back. As the campaign unfolds, sometimes it's what isn't said that sends a message to voters. Optics are always incredibly important in politics, and it appears the BC provincial campaign is no different. Penny Daflos now on the message that parties are trying to send.
As with any modern election, what candidates say,
we're training people for the future.
There are 16, 17 minds that are ready to go.
Is of top importance, but how they present themselves is also carefully considered.
It's certainly not the only thing we want to think about, but it is interesting. It tells us something about how the leaders themselves see this election unfolding.
We're used to seeing David Eby in suits at the podium, but on the campaign trail, he's been face-to-face with voters and projecting man of the people vibes while making policy commitments.
$150 million over 3 years for Skilled Trades BC, which will increase apprenticeships from 26,000 to over 50,000 apprenticeships in British Columbia.
John Rustad has opted for practical and consistent for the first week of the campaign, with a branded BC Conservatives jacket and his personality coming through in his speeches.
We need to get done in this province. Enough of this BS.
As his priorities are highlighted in plain language.
Quite frankly, we got a government that is hostile to our forest sector.
You can project yourself in different ways, but staying within yourself is important as well.
This isn't a new strategy. For decades, the royal family has continued to soften its image to connect with the public. U.S. politicians like to project common ground with the average American. And even our national political stage features meticulous branding and, in some cases, rebranding. The provincial level is no different.
Each of those two leaders have their own challenges and their own objectives in the election, and wardrobe and demeanor is one way that they can show and not just tell the voters what they're about.
It may not sway them at the ballot box, but whether voters feel connected to candidates could affect how open they are to hearing their vision for the province. Penny Daflos, CTV News, Chilliwack.
We will likely never know exactly what happened in the final moments of a Surrey woman's life. A 37-year-old mother and newcomer to Canada was shot dead by police last week at her home, and advocates are questioning why she had to die. CTV's Yasmin Gandam has the story.
Vanessa Renteria, a recent refugee from Colombia, was shot and killed by Surrey RCMP last Thursday inside her home here in Cloverdale. Police were responding to a report of a disturbance at the home, but when they arrived, Renteria had barricaded herself in a room with her toddler, allegedly holding a weapon next to the child.
Like so many newcomers, with the hope of building a better life for herself and her daughter, only to have those dreams cut short by an encounter with the police.
Community groups say they want a full investigation into her death and are hoping for transparency in the process.
Everybody deserves a really good, fair, impartial investigation, one in which the public and definitely the community impacted has faith and trust in.
Renteria's family joined the press conference over Zoom, speaking through a translator. They are desperate to attain a visa to come to Canada and find out more about what happened to her. They have not been able to see her body as part of the grieving process.
There is no justification for this. And the community is going to fight for justice for her and also for her family. Because the victim of this death is not just her, it's her family in Colombia and her child.
According to family members, Renteria spent time in shelters in Surrey and was suffering from domestic abuse. She leaves behind her 18-month-old daughter, who is now in the care of her husband. The Independent Investigations Office is looking into what happened and the circumstances that led up to her death, but remain tight-lipped on when the process will be complete.
It's far too early at this time to draw any conclusions about what did or did not occur in this particular case. And that will all come out at the end of our investigation when we release further information.
There are still many unanswered questions surrounding Renteria's death, but for now the family is waiting and hoping for answers. Yasmin Gandam, CTV News, Surrey.
Now to the latest efforts to save BC's transit system. TransLink warns a massive deficit will soon cause major cuts to service, and that means widespread implications whether you take public transit or not. CTV's Reagan Hasegawa has more details.
According to a new report commissioned by TransLink, a drop in service would lead to 21,000 additional vehicles on the road, and that would mean the average household would spend an additional 200 hours a year stuck in traffic.
Well, I don't use transit, or maybe I use transit very rarely, so if there was significant reductions to transit service, I wouldn't be impacted. And clearly what this report shows is that everyone will be impacted.
TransLink says it's facing a $600 million deficit. If it doesn't get more government funding by spring, service will be disrupted. Half of bus service, 30% of SkyTrain and SeaBus, and all of the West Coast Express service are on the line. Areas with low ridership would be left with little to no transit. The impacts of the service reduction would be felt far beyond just transit users. Households could be hit with costs up to $1,000 a year for vehicle ownership and the costs linked to freight congestion. A drop in transit is also expected to slow economic growth and discourage new talent from moving to the region to work.
We will continue to support transit. We will continue to support the expansion of transit for a growing province, and that's the commitment to the TransLink mayors as well as to all British Columbians that rely on transit.
The BC Conservatives say they would bring some money to the table and do an audit of TransLink. Leader John Rustad has been critical of the company for experiencing record ridership, but also a major deficit. Reagan Hasegawa, CTV News, New Westminster.
Turning to tonight's weather, the North Coast will deal with a chance of showers plus a low at 8 degrees. The Terrace-Kitimat area will more than likely see showers as well, with their low sits at 5 degrees. And the Bulkley Valley and Lakes District is expected to only have a few clouds with their low down at -5 degrees. On the north coast, the week for them should see some sun to start before the clouds and rain return in full force as the high bounces between 13 and 11 degrees. In the Terrace-Kitimat area, the next week or so should deal with some part sunny and cloudy days before going back to rain and clouds too, and the high should shift from 12 to 10 degrees. And in the Bulkley Valley and Lakes District, the upcoming week will be a bit more sunny as a whole before the rain comes back again, while their high moves from 13 to 12 degrees. Checking out the highways now, visit Drive BC for the latest and up-to-date conditions, and as always, drive safe out there. On Highway 16, there is bridge maintenance, other maintenance, utility work, construction work, a stalled vehicle, ditching, and line painting. Highway 37 has some roadside brushing and utility work. 37A has ditching too, and there's some construction work on the Nishka Highway. And this is what the roads were looking like this afternoon around the region from the view of the province's highway cams. Still to come, an attempt to create a ceasefire in the Middle East was unsuccessful. Welcome back. A ceasefire proposal from France, the UK, and the US, which was supported by Canada too, was rejected as Hezbollah and Israel continued to exchange rocket fire. CTV's Heather Wright reports now on recent developments and the growing calls for de-escalation of the conflict.
Reserve soldiers arrive in northern Israel as the armed forces call up troops in preparation for a possible ground offensive into Lebanon. The Israeli Defense Forces says it attacked 220 Hezbollah targets in the last 24 hours, while Hezbollah fired dozens of rockets into northern Israel. Lebanon's foreign minister says roughly 500,000 people are now displaced, while more than 600 have been killed. Among the dead, the aunt of Canadian Reem Shawar.
This isn't just Hezbollah that they say they're going after people. There's no regard for human life.
Israel insists it is only targeting Hezbollah and has no plans to pause its campaign, despite calls from the international community, including Canada, for a 21-day ceasefire. Arriving in New York to speak at the United Nations, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu reiterated his pledge to keep hitting Hezbollah. But world leaders say they will keep trying for a diplomatic solution. French President Emmanuel Macron, who put forward the ceasefire proposal with the United States, was in Montreal today with Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and vowed to keep trying.
We will work hard in the hours to come in order to convince Israel to commit and indeed deliver the ceasefire for 21 days.
Part of Israel's stepped-up offensive against Hezbollah is an effort to get roughly 70,000 people back in their homes. People like Canadian Michael Mijeka, who has been displaced for nearly a year.
This whole time since the 7th of October, every single day, daily, they are firing rockets at civilian areas, destroying civilian homes, not allowing our children to go to school.
Hezbollah leaders have said they will continue to fight until there is a ceasefire in Gaza, while Israel wants Hezbollah to completely withdraw from the border region. Two key demands as world leaders look for a diplomatic solution. Omar.
An Ontario high school has been learning about Orange Shirt Day and the impact the Canadian residential school system has had on Indigenous communities. As CTV's Kimberly Fowler tells us, students are embarking on a reflective path leading up to the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation.
Well, I always tell the kids, I say, look, you know what? My generation wrecked it. It's up to you to fix it.
A harsh realization for teacher Michael Zombathy and lesson for students at Holy Trinity High School in Canada.
I feel sad knowing that
as a country we did this. We need to remember what we did because history will repeat itself otherwise.
In the week leading up to Orange Shirt Day, students from grades 7 to 12 participating in several educational events about the history and ongoing impacts of residential schools.
And my hope is with young people is that they'll understand what has been done and not repeat the mistakes of the past, but create a new future that's actually a beneficial one to get the Canada that it was supposed to be.
Students taking part in a reconciliation walk to honor residential school survivors and the children who never returned home.
And unfortunately what happened was the children who did not go voluntarily were taken from their families.
Stories and powerful lessons from First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people intended to be shared beyond the classroom.
I feel like it's a really heavy topic, to learn in school, but it's really necessary. They teach us these things and they encourage us to, if our parents or like any older generations as well that aren't used to this kind of thing, haven't heard about it, that we, the next generation, we're the ones who have to make it known.
Schools across the country will recognize the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation on September 30th. Kimberly Fowler, CTV News.
And now we turn our attention to the stock markets. The Canadian dollar is down 14/10 of a cent. The price of gold is down $26.80. Oil is up 51 cents. Natural gas is up 15 cents. Aluminum is up $73. In Toronto, the TSX is down 77.01 points. The Venture Index is down 11.19. In New York, the Dow Jones is up 137.89 and Nasdaq is down 70.70. Still ahead is a profile of a new and adorable internet star. Welcome back. A baby pygmy hippo in Thailand has taken the internet by storm, and visitors to the zoo where Mu Deng lives have exploded. She is a member of an endangered species, and it's hoped that her fame will help fuel conservation efforts. NBC's Janice Mackey-Freyer reports.
With pink cheeks and dewy rolls, Mu Deng is the hottest little hippo on the planet. An internet superstar who seems to be showing up everywhere, on sports teams, at landmarks. She's this way. We found Mu Deng here at the Khao Kiao Zoo in Thailand, doing what the 2-month-old pygmy hippopotamus does best, sleeping, being cute, and sleeping some more.
Very cute. You get to see them with my own very eyes.
Mu Deng, whose name means bouncy pig or pork patty, shot to fame just after she was born, when the zoo uploaded adorable images of her. For the world, it was love at first sight.
Do you think she realizes how popular she is?
Mu Deng may not know, says her keeper, but her mom may be surprised. Before, it was quiet here. Now that she's the meme of the moment, zoo attendance has soared. Her image now a registered trademark here.
Can I get a t-shirt? Out of stock.
And boosting awareness, with pygmy hippos considered an endangered species. While cameras now offer a 24/7 live stream, we saw that beyond the antics going viral, Mu Deng wants only to be close to her mom, Jonah, a little girl unaware of her fame and happily unbothered. Janice Mackey-Freyer, NBC News, Chonburi, Thailand.
That's all of our news for now. From all of us here at CFTK-TV News, I'm Kale Maslin, and thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.